Welcome. Take it up with Jessica Lee. I'm here with Jim Dickie, who is the partner at Sales Mastery, a research firm to help sales leaders accelerate and succeed. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jessica.
I'm delighted to have you on the show because 3 weeks ago you released this report, AI for Sales, and there's some really fascinating trends and insights that you share. Wanted to get your quick highlights of what you discover and what we can learn.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here again today, Jessica. I think really what we're seeing right now is a lot of companies out there trying to figure out, how do we optimize the performance of our sales teams? That's really one of the goals of sales enablement. And that's really where we started the company years ago, was to go back through and do primary research on what are the challenges facing sales teams, why those problems exist, but more importantly, what do you do about it? How do you leverage people, process, knowledge, and technology to solve those problems? And the technology aspect has been something that's taken a huge twist over the last couple of years in a very positive way. And that we've had CRM around for decades and a whole bunch of sales enablement tools out there, but we really still have problems. We still have issues with forecast accuracy, with onboarding new salespeople, with optimizing lead generation, et cetera. But we've seen the emergence of some AI technologies coming into sales that are fundamentally helping people do aspects of customer lifecycle management totally differently than ever before. So that's really what we wanted to do with the study, is we wanted to go out and get experiences of people who had implemented it, people who were evaluating it, but also people who had no interest at all, which is the vast majority of the market, still in embryonic technology, but just to see what they were thinking and then also what the impact and implications might be on sales.
I would like to get some use cases of what you've seen people do with AI for sales, like implementing AI to gain a lot of insights. You need a lot of data, first of all, to actually have any kind of accurate insights into what you're seeing. So maybe if you could share the use cases, say the energy or fintech, to give us samples.
Sure, and energy is an interesting one. There's a good book. Anybody who really wants to get an idea of what's going on with AI, Tom Siebel wrote a book called Digital Transformation, and he released it earlier this year. One of the things he talked about was there's an energy company in Italy that's focused on, they said, let's go through and introduce the Internet of Things, smart devices. And what they did was they replaced millions. I think they started off with 40 million of their traditional energy meters with smart meters. And the key thing with a smart meter is it's gathering data every 15 minutes from every meter. So the initial use case was, well, this is going to be great for helping us do predictive maintenance and, be able to forecast when there's going to be an issue so we could move things around on the grid and keep everybody having energy. But think about the implications for sales. Because now I think they're up around 70 million smart meters now in the geography they cover. They're getting data on every building, on an ongoing basis. Well, what if I started giving that information to sales? Because it could analyze it. Here's an 18-story building, and here's the energy consumption. And here's a 30-story building right next to it. And it's using less energy than the 18-story building. Well, AI algorithms could tell you that that's happening. It could also tell you why. And so it gives information to the sales guy. Go call on the facility manager of the 18-story building and tell him or her that here's, you're paying more than the building next to you and it's almost twice your size. Here's why you're paying that much more. Here's what we could do about it. So think about technology in that case is doing the needs analysis for a salesperson, where they're going to go in and know something that they didn't know before, but also the customer doesn't know because they don't know what the implications are of the building next to them and what they could do about it. So it'll change the dialogue that you could have in that particular example.
Yeah, I know I get the PG&E bill sometimes, and it compares, say, my home, the energy usage to the other similar homes. So in that case, I am getting the insights, the collective data that they're able to share and give a benchmark. That's what you were saying on the commercial side.
Yeah, and it's taking it to a much deeper level because it could tell you, if you replace this air conditioning unit with this one, here's the implications. If you put in, the tinted windows, here are the implications, because it's going to know all the energy usage issues of the other building, and it's right next door. So it's not theoretical. Here's things like other buildings like yours. This is the guy right next door. They're on the same block.
I see.
You should have very similar results to them if you mimicked what they were doing.
So they're suggesting solutions, not just pointing out the delta in energy usage, but what can you do to change that? All right. I think there's also a very interesting use case about a fintech company that's working with farmers.
Yeah, there's a lot of things right now with, how does a financial officer, working for a commercial bank, have a deeper relationship with the customers. And one of them is that there's now in fintech is another area that's exploding in artificial intelligence. So there's geospatial satellites, they're flying over the fields and they're able to tell you what the temperature is of the field. There are also drones that are flying over the fields and they could tell you what the moisture content is of the field. There's also sensors now in things like your John Deere tractors. So as you're going up and down the field, it's measuring things like potential pest infestations. When you start to aggregate all that data, which there's companies that are now focused on doing, you could go back to a company that's focusing on agri-loans and say, here's information on John's farm versus Mary's farm. And so I go in there and I sit down and have a discussion with them. And I said, look, at the beginning of this farm season, we sat down with you and we talked about what your lease line ought to be in terms of a line of credit for you to be able to have money to plant until you get the harvest coming in. And we also talked about capital equipment expenditures you were going to make. And we did it based on a set of assumptions. And the data we're seeing says the assumptions are changing. We had a wet spring, so we were 3 weeks late planting. Based on your district that you're in right now, the Department of the Interior is forecasting you're going to have an 87% crop yield of soybeans as opposed to 100% that you had last year. We also think that's going to come in about 3 weeks later. So why don't we proactively work with you? And what we're going to do is we're going to extend your line of credit an extra 2 months. So you don't have to feel like you have to hurry up and pay it back on the things. We're also going to extend the payment terms on the capital equipment, and we'll know what to do next time. And so you're actually working with them on, again, providing information that they probably can't afford as an individual farmer. But as a large financial institution, you could. And again, changes the whole dynamic on how you're supporting your client.
I think with technology, you do get a lot more insight. So information that maybe manually you used to do, but now that's being fed to you by the intelligence, the data gives you. And I think it frees up then time for the sales folks to have more intelligence to prepare them for having a better conversation with a prospect when they have a chance to be in front of the prospect. And I think that also changes the profession of sales. Like, who would you recruit into sales and who would be more likely to be successful? How do you then train your sales reps to be successful in this transformation that we're seeing in the sales profession?
Well, you bring up a great topic, Jessica, because the whole thing is when you think about the salesperson in the 80s or 90s or even the early 2000s, what you were doing is looking for people that had sales skills. So I'm very, very good at presentation. I'm very, very good at persuasion. I'm there to convince you to do something. And now what we're seeing right now is with all this information coming in, we're going to want salespeople who, yes, I want you to have sales skills, but I want you to have collaboration skills. I want you to have co-creation skills. I want you to understand the concept of customer outcomes. And so I really want somebody who's going to have a more strategic relationship with a client. And so it's probably a different type of a person, that we're going to go out and change the profiles of who we hire. We're then going to change the profiles of how we coach them and how we compensate them. So it's going to have a lot of implications because we're going to have dialogues that we've never had before, both externally out to the customer, but also bringing the voice of the customers back to the organization and having salespeople sit down with people in product development and finance, customer support, and say, here's what the customer needs from you, not just me. So I think it really will be an exciting time to make that transition in sales.
Yeah, I feel like the sales folks will then have to be a lot more of an executive level of a business thinker, like not just functions and features of a product anymore. It's very much a high level and elevated conversation that you need to be.
Yeah, I think it's even going to be conversations. I had a conversation with Simon Fuhrer, who's over at Challenger, and they did a study recently where they said how many decision makers are they involved in the making of a B2B in a final choice. And the average came in at 10.2.
Mm.
So, think about if you were just in a salesperson selling CRM system. Well, if I'm selling the VP of sales, he or she's going to be interested, how does this thing increase revenues for my team? But the marketing person, the CMO, is going to go, I don't care about that. How does this interface with my marketing automation system that I've already invested a whole lot of money in? And the CIO is going to come in and say, well, wait a minute, as long as we're talking about that, what are the implications on all the rest of the legacy systems we have? And then the CFO is going to say, well, what's the software as a service? I got to pay for this thing forever. And then the CEO says, hey, I'm going to be on TV on Squawk Box and I need to talk about shareholder value. Well, there are 5 different conversations.
Yeah.
And they're all there. And I gotta be meeting all of those in order to get to yes, because otherwise I can end up with no decision.
That's true. It's a lot more complex, and I think that means that you do require to have people help you to prepare for those conversations.
Absolutely.
Like industry trends, statistics, numbers, to then build a case for each persona that you're going to go and talk to.
And I know the topic of sales enablement is near and dear to your heart, and I think that's really what we're looking for that person or that team to do. Is they've got I think of them as being like the orchestra conductor. They don't play any instrument, but they make sure that marketing and training and content development and IT and support service all are working together to support the sales organization, because it's going to be a harder task today. And whereas maybe sales operations traditionally has been there to do reports on what is happening in sales, sales enablement's there to say, how do we make more sales?
Yes, I feel like there's just an overwhelming amount of information. So feeding the right piece of content to the rep at the time they need it, so that they can take advantage of that and present the information. Otherwise, it's overwhelming, just searching for the right information and trying to retain all that knowledge. And so, yes, I think sales enablement is a very important part of the process to ensure that you are moving the conversations closer to the end of the funnel.
I think also there's going to be implications too on sales management, because a manager's job is not to do the job for the rep; it's to help the salesperson do the job. So coaching and mentoring is their key thing. And so we're the tools that are helping them understand, here's what John's working on versus what Beth's working on versus what Ben's working on. Here, they need different type of help in different ways. And by the way, these 5 people on my team are doing just fine. So let's not bug them this week. Let's go take that coaching time and spend it with people who really do need help. And I think that's another aspect where AI for sales and just new approaches to coaching are going to really change the manager's job as well.
Yeah, one of the part that we're seeing is that using AI in the sales enablement function of collecting data to then maybe rate the presentation or the sales pitch, and have automatically AI doing feedback.
Yeah, we're seeing examples of that as well. We're seeing also AI being used to do things like persona analysis.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call from a company in the UK, and they said, we do analysis of different buyers that you might be selling to. And I said, well, like what? And they said, let me show you an example. So I said, check your emails. So I checked my email. There was an 18-page report on me. They have never met me, but they had a full social analysis of me, Jim on LinkedIn, Jim on Twitter. Here's videos of presentations I made that are on YouTube. There was an Oceans Buy personality profile analysis of me. There was analysis when I'm social. It had one thing wrong. On the very last page, when I talk about how to connect with me, it says, Jim may have a problem with sarcasm. I have a PhD in sarcasm. But I thought, here's information. How valuable would that be to a salesperson? You lose one of your champions in an account. A new person comes in, you know nothing about him or her. How useful would it be to have that information coming in and give you insights before you ever contact that person on what their motivation is, their communication style, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's a great one, because it's true that a lot of times people do manually do a lot of research. In the past, you would have to pay a company to manually pull all of this profiling information, but now it's all automated. So that's definitely an advancement. At the touch of fingertip, you can learn so much about a person before you have a conversation.
Absolutely.
So what would you say are the next big research project you're going to do that you're seeing a huge demand?
We're working right now with a friend of mine over at the University of Colorado on two things. How do you restart the revenue engine? We're coming out of the COVID-19 period, and so, all of a sudden buying and selling stopped, but we still have a number to hit for 2020. We also have things to get in place for having things do better in 21 and 22. So we're focusing on that. And then Barry and I are also working with Ben Shapiro and Boris Goiberg at Harvard on how's the profession of sales going to be changing over the next couple of years. Ben is chair emeritus of marketing. Boris is one of the leaders of the business school, and really just looking at this thing on the business impact of how, again, things we were talking about, but also how does not just a sales organization align with a customer, but how does the rest of the enterprise align with customers in order to be delivering a different set of value beyond just the products we sell. So those are going to be, I think, two really great projects for us through the rest of this year.
Yeah, well, we do know that everything is very much online. Digital is a big deal. And with the COVID-19 sheltering in place, that just accelerated all of the initiatives of digital transformation. And a lot of what we do now will probably remain even after we're back into normal. I think these online collaboration, remote tools is going to stay. Not just the business, but in school, even when kids go back to school, I think a lot of that, it's going to remain online.
Yeah, I think there'll always be the need for, that personal interaction, but I have a partner who works for one of the large, consulting firms, and he's constantly traveling all over the world. He says, I have loved the last 3 months. And he says, if we could cut it down where I'm traveling like half time to a third of the time, he says, the quality of my life would go up. And I think my clients will like it just as much because, if I show up, they feel like they've got to be with me for the whole day. If we're doing something like this, we can get everything done in 30 minutes and then we've got the rest of our day to do other things.
Yes, I would agree with you on that. I think as long as you're still delivering business results, but now you have more time, so because it's less traveling time, then I think definitely people will want that scenario.
Absolutely.
It's been a great conversation, Jim. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, Jessica. Thanks for inviting me.